I deeply thank ICD for the invitation, and I think the theme I chose goes with your goal, being the promotion of global peace and stability through strengthening and supporting intercultural relations at all levels. So thank you again for the invitation. This is the Portuguese Parliament. It's not as nice as Bundestag, but it's a very, very nice building. And you can see the blue of the sky in Portugal. I think it's interesting to notice that. And now I'm going to talk about this theme, as you already know. And I'm going to talk, to pass through Human Rights Declaration, Culture of Peace, Paris Declaration and Accurate Agenda for Action, Policy Coherence for Development, Multicultural Integration and Emotions and Action. As you all know, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and it's always important to remind this, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. And everyone is entitled to all rights and freedoms set forth in the Universal Declaration, without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. No one shall be held in slavery or servitude. All are equal before the law and are entitled without any discrimination to equal protection of the law. This is very important when we speak about intercultural relationship. And the principles of human rights, it's important also to underline this: universality and inalienability, indivisibility, interdependence and interrelatedness, equality and non-discrimination, participation and inclusion, accountability and rule of law. And human rights are universal and inalienable, indivisible, interdependent and interrelated. They are universal because everyone is born with and possesses the same rights, regardless of where they live, their gender or race, or their religious, cultural, or ethnic background. Inalienable because people's rights can never be taken away. And this is very important also. When we look at someone and think that is someone below the others, it's not true. According to the law, according to these principles, and these are universal rules. Human rights in other eras were seen to be largely confined to civil liberties, such as fair trial, freedom of expression, association and religion, and the absence of torture, and ignored economic and social and cultural rights, such as the right to food, to education, to basic health care. The fundamental values essential to international relations in the 21st century are freedom, equality, solidarity, tolerance, respect for nature, and shared responsibility. For those who thought that economic, social, and cultural rights were too expensive, and that's why they could be postponed facing the other civil and political rights, finally, the coming into life of the optional protocol to the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, the missing piece of the International Bill of Human Rights, it was already finished and it is very close to be adopted, and the work was led by a Portuguese woman, Catarina Albuquerque. It was an impossible task, and she made it, she succeeded. So we need also a new vision of peace. A new vision of peace constructed by developing a peace culture based on the universal values of life, liberty, justice, solidarity, tolerance, human rights, and equality between men and women. The conference emphasized that violence is not an endemic part of the human condition. UNESCO, in the same route, into the human right to peace. I'm going to pass this because I was told I had to speak very quicker, not to save some time for questions and answers. The essential tool for this, of course, it's education, and we have to have a very huge program of action with sustainable economic and social development, respect for all human rights, equality, democratic participation, understanding, tolerance and solidarity, participatory communication and free flow of information and knowledge, international peace and security. So I'm going to pass all this. You can keep the presentation and then distribute it for all people interested. Perhaps to strengthen these 8 aspects of the culture of peace. Human rights benefit the entire human family in all its dimensions. They benefit, so they cannot be looked as a burden. They benefit humanity. Education, peacemaking, skills of dialogue, mediation, conflict transformation, consensus building, cooperation and non-violent social change. The culture of peace requires that economic development be based on sustainable human development for all, as well as preservation of our environment, democratic participation and governance, equality, freedom of opinion. And in the culture of peace, enemy images are transcended and superseded by understanding, tolerance, and solidarity. The culture of peace needs international peace and security based on disarmament. And perhaps it is important to remind Einstein, who said, peace cannot be kept by force, it can only be achieved by understanding. And Frederico Mayor, we must understand today that if peace is the right of all people, then a culture of peace is the responsibility of all people. I think it's important when we talk about promotion the peace. And a Turkish ambassador telling us all these kind of procedures that are very, very important to achieve this culture of peace. In the same sense, governance and development and human rights and development, we know that we will never have development if you do not respect human rights. This program, GovNet, is a very important one in this goal. Human rights and aid effectiveness, human rights and poverty, human rights, conflict prevention and peace building, human rights assessments. Ownership, alignment, harmonization, results, and mutual accountability are other aspects that we should notice in order to achieve governance and development. But we know that global inequality is growing up all around the world. And global inequality leads to a lot of poverty on a global scale. And poverty and war sometimes, they push people to migration and movement. As you know, human migration is movement of people from one place in the world to another for the purpose of taking up permanent or semi-permanent residence, usually across a political boundary. Specific ways of migration. And we have some lessons learned about the policy coherence for development. I'm going to pass this quickly also, because I think when we have some migration movements, we have to perhaps to act in the origin. And that's why it is important to have a very strong policy and a very strong and coherent policy for development. And we have to act in the destiny. That's why we learned some lessons about how to act and how to achieve our goals. First, setting and prioritizing objectives. Building block political commitment and policy, coordinating policy and its implementation, and monitoring, analysis, and reporting. This is always very important. And Portugal is strongly focused on 6 partner countries with which it has historical connections, a shared language, and close relationships. Portuguese is the 5th most talked language in the world. Angola, Cabo Verde, Guinea-Bissau, Mozambique, São Tomé e Príncipe, and Timor-Leste, and of course Brazil. In terms of sectors, Portugal invests in development cooperation areas where it traditionally has real value added, such as education, governance, institutional, capacity building, and security. The main priorities for multilateral cooperation include poverty reduction, with an emphasis on African LDCs, assisting fragile states and post-conflict situations, including so-called aid orphans, and promoting policy coherence and aid effectiveness. The development cohesion strategy is currently being updated in order to make it better. Business for development and science and technology are also very important tools in order, through knowledge and technological transfers in fields of health, agriculture, climate change, and energy, in order to develop in origin these countries. Of course, in order to attain coherence in migration and development, we made a particular effort to improve the extent to which all its policies, whether domestic or international, and supportive of development objectives, to seek policy coherence for development. And I'm going to show you we adopted at the national level a migration law and a national plan for migrant integration, which considers the developmental impact of migration flows. And I'm going to show you how this program is designed and its success. We have about 4.5% of migrants in our country, about 8% of the working population they represent, and more than 170 nationalities, the most important being Brazil, Ukraine, Cape Verde, Romania, and Angola. And you see it's not only Portuguese-speaking countries, but a lot of other nationalities. And of course we had, in the beginning, in the latest 90s and in the beginning of the 2000, the 21st century, we had a lot of problems, mainly about coordination, and we decided to change everything and to adopt a very integrated policy with a public institution for immigrants integration in Portugal, a dedicated one, in order to, because we recognize the importance of having a coherent integration policy for immigrants, and we created a state cabinet and the High Commission for Immigration and Intercultural Dialogue, ACD. And since its creation, this public body has assured the participation and cooperation of representative immigrant associations, social partners, and state services in the definition and assessment of policies on immigrants integration and on the prevention of exclusion and discrimination. Because as a model for management of cultural diversity, we think that we have to say yes to integration, yes again to integration, and no, always no to assimilation, segregation, and exclusion. We have action plans approved. We are already in the execution of the second one. And we made a major national mobilization for full acceptance and integration of immigrants through the assurance of the respect for immigrants' rights, by promoting social cohesion and equal opportunities, by favoring the integration of immigrants, and by promoting intercultural and interreligious dialogue. The model is based on specific centers, the National immigrant support centers and the Portuguese one-stop shop experience, where we attend and receive and provide an integrated response to problems experienced by immigrant citizens, investment in a real partnership and cooperation with various services in the same place. And this is very important, to have the different areas connected and in the same place to save and to avoid dislocations and losing time, and to be an innovative institution, very flexible and with the capacity to provide a rapid response to immigrants' needs. And we have a transversal approach to the migrants' problems, with all these ministries represented, and support offices at ICD, and specific support service like children's room, pre-sorting, and information counter. This is a very, they lead a very important activity from, in less than 8 years, they attended more than 2.7 million cases. And the main nationalities are those one I already told you before. And we had decentralized spaces for welcoming and providing information and support for immigrants at local level, 86 different local centers open to the public, and resulting of partnerships, because we make agreements with local councils, immigrant associations, NGOs, and so on. And we have a specific program for inclusion with all these measures, and this is very, very much participated, and the results are fantastic. This program, data and figures, you have them here, and you can see that thousands of migrants have already been supported by these programs, and their success in job is much better than before, of course. And we have, for hosting and integration, other initiatives and instruments, like SOS Immigrant, a telephone number, 24 hours a day, telephone translation service, Portuguese for All program, promotion of immigrant entrepreneurship, network of offices for professional integration. Immigrant integration policy based on partnership with civil society, believing that immigrants are part of the solution and should be co-responsible for definition of the welcoming and integration policy. ICD developed several activities in partnership with immigrant associations, all these listed here. And COCAI works within ICD and seeks to ensure the participation and collaboration of immigrant communities, social partners, and social solidarity institutions in the definition of social integration policies and policies to combat exclusion. And since 1999, Portugal has a system of immigrants association recognition, and recognized associations receive technical support, namely training for their leaders, as well as financial support for their activities. We also publish books and promote a positive image of immigration through media. I'm going to pass this because I'd like to let you know that to achieve a balance between openness to diversity and social cohesion, we have this model, and we have dedicated particular attention to the conception, implementation, and evaluation of public immigration policies on the basis of essential strategic cooperation with academia and research centers through its Immigration Observatory. And you can look for in this site all the documents we have, all the reports we have, and all the evaluations and research areas. And what I'm talking about, it's not something I dreamed about. It's something that was rewarded by European Union, and we are in the second place in the European Union by the quality of our integration policy for migrants. And it's the second year we received this award. Sweden is in the first place, but now we narrowed our distance from Sweden. So Sweden, take care, because perhaps we are going to catch you. Of course, the Portuguese secrets for integration policy success are, we have a migration history. Even here in Germany, we have a lot of Portuguese, very well appreciated, I must say. Not only with inflows, but also with a strong experience on outflows moral obligation to welcome immigrants, in the same way that we expect the Portuguese immigrants to be welcomed abroad. You don't forget that for centuries we sailed all around the world. Political consensus, convergence of political positions of the major political parties, Socialist Party and Social Democratic Party. I have here two colleagues of the Social Democrat Party that are going to speak tomorrow, I think. And integration policies under the dependency of transversal ministry, presidency of Council of Ministers before, and now parliamentarian affairs. The Portuguese secrets, again, immigrants as part of the solution and not as a problem, and positive public opinion about immigrants. And I call your special attention for this latest survey. Only 3% of the surveyed Portuguese, this is Eurobarometer, consider that immigration is a EU problem, and 0% consider that this is a problem that Portugal is facing at the moment. Compared to 20% and 12% respectively for UE 27 average. I think, of course, our main concern in Portugal is the economic situation, but we consider that immigrants are part of the solution and are not our problem. And I think that it is very important to reflect on this. Because we should think that if we want to live in a world where we belong all, independently of our color, of our condition, of our sex, we live in the same world and we belong to the same humanity. We should remind that people whose present offers only examples of failure, defeat, frustration and humiliation scar their past for reasons to keep believing in themselves. And when we stop believing in ourselves, it's our end. 1 minute? Okay. And I would like to tell you that I much support the vision of Dominique Moisy about geopolitics of emotion, how cultures of fear, humiliation, and hope are reshaping the world against the vision of Samuel Huntington about the clash of civilizations. And I think that in the 21st century, we need emotions to feel and decide. Why emotions? Because we already have the rational tools, the declarations, the laws, the principles. Now we need emotions to feel and to decide, and hands to accomplish. And I think that we need new pledges and commitments, like Mary Robinson said. We need something more prosaic: implementation, implementation, and implementation. And as Eleanor Roosevelt once said, and she said that in the 10th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and as you know, Eleanor Roosevelt was the chairwoman that coordinated the team that built the UN Declaration of Human Rights. We need to bring human rights to small places, close to home, so close and so small that they cannot be seen on any maps of the world. When this will happen, we will have human rights interpretics. Thank you for your attention.